You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to or during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, your running's over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down, no matter by you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real
Warning. This episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature and should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or from some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims. My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own two eyes. If you're going to get offended, please turn this podcast off now. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. I'm going to begin this episode, I'm going to be continuing the episode of Antoinette Frank, but before we get started, it's with a heavy heart. I'm going to bring you the sad news that Corporal Sean Kelly of the Denham Springs Police Department died 2 days ago from his injuries that he received being shot by a piece of shit in Denham Springs when he was responding to a domestic violence call. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read y'all one of the news articles, and this is from the Morning Advocate, a paper in Baton Rouge, and then I'll start the episode. It says, a Denham Springs police officer who was critically injured in a shooting last month near I-12, that's Interstate 12, y'all, died Friday afternoon in the hospital, the department said. Corporal Sean Kelly was shot multiple times shortly before 4:30 p.m. on May the 11th in the parking lot of Spring Park Plaza on South Range Avenue. Corporal Sean Kelly was a great public servant, a great father, grandfather, husband, and just a great human being, Denham Springs Police Chief Rodney Walker said in a statement. He was one of the finest men I've ever known. The Denham Springs and Livingston Parish communities have truly lost one of its finest. Police said Kelly died surrounded by his family, friends, and members of the DSPD. His remains were escorted in a procession Friday evening from Our Lady of the Lake Hospital to Seal Funeral Home in Denham Springs. Funeral arrangements have not yet been finalized. Kelly and other officers had responded to a call about an argument between a man and a woman who did not know each other outside of Petco, officials said. Once Kelly and another officer arrived, 30-year-old Justin Roberts of Denham Springs began firing at them from his car, striking Kelly multiple times. Denham Springs Police Department spokesman Sergeant Scott Sterling said in the days after the shooting that Kelly wasn't originally supposed to be at the scene. He was assigned to the traffic unit, but noticed the responding officers were busy and volunteered to help them out. Roberts fled the scene, but was soon shot down by a Livingston Parish Sheriff's deputy after Roberts approached them with the gun, deputy said. He died from his injuries in the hospital later that night. An investigation by the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office connected Roberts to two other rage incidents that took place nearby in the minutes leading up to the shooting. Kelly began his law enforcement career in 1994 with the Louisiana Department of Corrections and other state agencies. He joined the Dennis Springs Police Department in 2019 as a taser instructor and field training officer. Kelly had received multiple commendations for his generous ways and positive attitude as well, Sterling said. I will always remember Dennis Springs Police Department Corporal Sean Kelly as a hero, Livingston Parish Sheriff Jason R. said Friday in a statement. He died doing what he loved to do, serving and protecting his community. In addition to that, he brought our Livingston Parish community together, reminding us that we are in this together, that we need to continue to work together, and that together we can do great things. At a blood drive hosted by DSPD for Kelly at Our Lady of the Lake Hospital days after the shooting, co-workers and community members flocked to support him. Sidney McCullough, a co-worker of Kelly, described him as the old man of the group and said he always made everybody laugh. Sterling announced that evening that more than 185 liters of blood had been donated that day alone. Additional drives took place across East Baton Rouge and Livingston parishes in the days following as well. Locals organized benefit lunches and dinners for weeks afterwards to help Kelly's family with medical costs. On Thursday, Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office shared photos of dispatchers donning shirts with Kelly's name from a fundraiser at Sporting Center, a local sporting goods store. Among these fundraisers included one planned for Saturday at the Dennis Springs Municipal Oaks Pavilion on Government Drive, which event organizers said will still be held to support Kelly's family. The event will last from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. with food, live music, and a car show. We're still going with it, and all the proceeds are still going to go to his family, said Casey Jackson, one of the event organizers. He still passed away. He's still not going to have his job, and his family still needs support. Dennis Springs Police Department had also organized its own benefit for the officer, scheduled for June 10th at the Shin Brewing Company. Y'all, Corporal Kelly had, I don't even think it was 2 weeks before the shooting, he had been with his partner to our studio and talked to Jim Chapman, and Jim gave him, some swag from RLRC and local leaders of podcasts and Bloody Angola, and he was a huge lifer and a good friend to us and a great man, and it's horrible, and all give some and some give all, and it just breaks my heart for his family, his biological family, and his police officer family. And that's not just Dennis Springs Police Department, but everybody. Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office, state troopers, Walker, everybody, that knew and loved him. He died. He's a hero. He was ambushed by a coward who, the only positive thing out of this is they killed him, rightfully so. And he would have killed more law enforcement had they not stopped him. So I just want to say that, get that out there. We have, but with Real Life, Real Crime Daily, Real Life, Real Crime, local leaders of podcasts, Bloody Angola, we've donated some items that were auctioned off this weekend at the benefit, and we're going to do something else for them in the future. And certainly we will be there at Le Chien for the benefit that Dennis Springs Police Department. Le Chien is a brewery, y'all, in downtown Dennis Springs, and we'll be there next weekend. God bless you, brother, and rest in peace. You will be missed, okay? And with that, I'm going to continue. Antoinette Frank, all right? Y'all, I told you last time I ended it where the shooting had occurred inside the restaurant on March 4th, 1995. Antoinette Frank was on the scene after the shooting, and the detectives had arrived, and they were thinking they were lucky because there was a police officer who was there and said that she saw who committed the robbery, and she said it was several males, and they got away in a car and all this. Well, I'm gonna tell you the rest of the story, okay? When she was out there, one of the surviving victims of the robbery, she was talking to them, and that the victim was talking in Vietnamese, and when the detectives were standing there, and Frank's asking her, she said, what happened? And the girl finally spoke in English. She said, you were there. Why are you asking me this? You were there, right? So then, the detectives were like, holy smoke, what's going on? They began to look at her as a suspect at the time. Now, I told you that Frank had become a police officer. One thing I said wrong in the last episode, I said she had an apartment. It wasn't an apartment. She had a small house. But she was off duty, and she had gone to the restaurant with Lacaze twice that night. And the third time she went back, it was after they were closed, and she knew they would be counting money. When her and Lacaze had entered the restaurant and committed the killings, they executed police officer Williams, who was her rabbi, if you will, and he was shot once in the back of the neck, paralyzed him, and then he went to the floor, and then he was shot 2 more times, and basically he was executed. And the responding officers found 2 more victims that were executed, that were on their hands and knees praying. They were looking for the money that Antoinette Frank knew they would be counting at that time. And so what happened was, when the shots fired out, 2 of the family members, 2 of the employees ran into the cooler, and they hid. And Frank and Lacaze go back there in the kitchen, and they execute the 2 victims, and they're looking for the money. Now, I'll tell you what happened. Chow Vu worked at the restaurant, at her family's restaurant. Detectives got there, and then once they realized Frank was a suspect, they separated her, and they began to interview her at a table, and they interviewed Chow Vu at another one. Now, Chow Vu says that she saw a battered red and white Ford Torino pull into the parking lot of her family's restaurant for the 3rd time that night, and this time it was just before 2 a.m. And she said she knew something bad was going to happen. She said, I just had a feeling inside. Something told me it was not right. The driver of the Torino was 24-year-old Antoinette Frank, an off-duty New Orleans police officer who sometimes worked a uniform extra-duty security detail at that restaurant. And she said Friday night's business had been slow, and in the early hours of this cool and drizzly Saturday morning, March 4th, 1995, Cho's mother had already left, leaving Cho, her older sister, and 2 teenage brothers to clean up. Kim Ann cleaned up the restaurant, y'all, which was named the Kin Ann Vietnamese restaurant. I apologize if I mispronounced the words. But it was located on the eastern side of New Orleans, just a couple miles from Lake Pontchartrain. Dressed in a leather jacket, green blouse, and black jeans, Frank tugged on the glass door, and she wanted to get in, but the door was locked. Frank had already been to the restaurant twice since her patrol shift ended at 11 p.m., and on her second trip, she brought someone she introduced as her nephew, 18-year-old Roger Lacaze. And although Lacaze stood just 5'2" and weighed 135 pounds, his mouth full of gold teeth and his attitude frightened Chow. She said she didn't like him. She said, I always heard gangsters had gold teeth. Chow didn't like Frank much either. Officer Williams, who ran the security detail and scheduled the other officers, had been working the restaurant since 9 p.m. After Frank had left the second time, Williams warned Chow that she was bad news. Williams didn't trust her, but although she wasn't authorized to work the detail, he had to sometimes use her to fill in for him or the other officers if one of them couldn't make it. While in the kitchen, 23-year-old Chow Vu was suddenly scared by Frank's sudden return. She had over $10,000 in cash spread out on the table, money her mother had borrowed to repair the plumbing and expand the parking lot. Chow grabbed all the money and stuffed it into a microwave oven, and her older sister, Ha, and 17-year-old brother, Kwong, were cleaning up the kitchen and saw where she hid the cash. When she saw Frank approach the door, she said, "Don't open the door," she shouted from the kitchen. Kwok watched as Frank unlocked the door. She wasn't supposed to have a key to the restaurant. In fact, Kwok's sister's keys had been missing since Frank's earlier visit that night. With the money hidden, Chow rushed into the dining room. Officer Williams stood up. He was just over 6 feet tall and weighed 225 pounds. And as Frank barged into the dining room, Williams asked her where she had gotten the key, but she ignored him and started pushing Chow and Kwok toward the kitchen. Officer Williams turned and had his back to the door as Roger Lacasse slipped into the restaurant carrying a 9mm pistol in his hand. In the kitchen, Frank said, "Chow, I need to talk to you." And that's when I heard the shooting, Chow recalled. Boom, boom, boom. Lacasse fired his first shot from close range, the muzzle of the pistol less than 18 inches from the back of Officer Williams' head. And they could tell this at the autopsy by the stiffling or the tattooing. If you hit somebody at close range, the gunpowder comes out of the barrel and it burns into the skin. That's how they can tell how far it was. According to the medical examiner, the trajectory was almost horizontal as the bullet severed the officer's spinal cord. Lacasse fired again, striking Williams in the back of the neck, and then as the officer's body tumbled toward the floor, Lacasse fired once more, the bullet tearing into Williams' back. The killer bent over the fallen body and snatched the dead officer's pistol from his holster. Then he reached into Williams' back pocket and removed his wallet. Frank gave Chow and Kwok one last shove, then turned and raced toward the front. Chow grabbed her brother and a restaurant employee named Vul, a 45-year-old Vietnamese woman who spoke no English, and ran toward the walk-in cooler farther back in the building. Over her shoulder, she called for Hao and Kwong to follow her, but they didn't move. Once inside the cooler, Chow and Kwok peeked through one of the glass doors and caught glimpses of Frank and Lacasse as they ransacked the kitchen. Because there was no way to lock the door from the inside, Chow's only hope was that Antoinette wouldn't think to look for them inside that cooler. And after Frank and Lacasse found the money, Frank snatched the cordless phone from its cradle at the bar. Seconds later, she stood over the kneeling forms of Hao and Kwong Vu, holding the same 9mm pistol Lacasse had just used to kill Williams. At her feet, the brother and sister held hands. They prayed and begged her not to kill them. As Kwok watched through the window of the cooler, Frank started shooting. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shots. Kwok wanted to run, but Chow held him back, telling him that Frank would kill him if she saw him. Kwok didn't die right away. He was kind of moaning, Frank said later in a statement to homicide detectives, so she shot him again. Then she started looking for Chow and her brother. According to Lacasse, when Frank couldn't find them, she looked at him and said, "One of them bitches got away." Inside the cooler, Chow and others had ducked as soon as they heard the shots, but eventually Chow stood on a rack and peeked through a window that looked out over a parking lot. A few minutes later, she saw Frank's car speeding away. After waiting several more minutes to make sure the two robbers were really gone, Chow crept out of the cooler and the restaurant was silent. On the blood-soaked kitchen floor were Kwong and Havu, both shot dead.
Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. The busy holiday season is here, and Uncommon Goods makes it less stressful with incredible hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. Gifts to spark joy, wonder, delight, and that's exactly what I wanted feeling. Hey, y'all, I ordered a super cool piece. It's a candle with a sculpture of LSU's Tiger Stadium on top of it. And each officially licensed laser-cut wooden replica features up to 4 layers of detail, creating a bird's eye view of a specific football field, seating section, and more. And every label includes your stadium's name, the team's logo, and school location. And it has a coconut, soy, vegan wax infused with sandalwood smell that creates tailgates and touchdown scent profile, reminiscent of game day. It's invigorating like fresh cut grass and nostalgic like smoke from a pre-game grill, and calming like the crisp autumn air of a new semester on campus. Y'all, I love it. I have it at the base of my TV, and I'm ready to watch the Tigers play on Saturday night, right? Uncommon Goods. Look, when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. And many of their handcrafted products are made in small batches. So shop now before they sell out this holiday season. Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high quality, unique, and often handmade or made in the U.S. They have the most meaningful, out of the ordinary gifts anywhere. They even have gifts you can personalize. From holiday host and hostess gift to the coolest finds for kids, to hits for everyone from the book lovers to diehard sports fans. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone, not the same old selections you can just find anywhere. And with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $3 million to date. So to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/RLRC. That's uncommongoods.com/RLRC for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary. Hey ladies, are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? Well, you're definitely not alone. There are more than 1,000 hormone disruptors living in our environment right now. It's in your food, your water, the air you breathe, the clothes you wear, your skincare products. They all mess with your hormones. Then there's the natural hormone changes your body goes through, premenopause, menopause. And while it's a natural process, it doesn't mean you have to suffer through it. The good news is you don't have to suffer through it anymore, because now you have Hormone Harmony, a formula made only with herbal ingredients that are shown to reduce hormonal symptoms in women of all ages. Hormone Harmony is not just a hormone supporting supplement, it's become a phenomenon. Women can't stop talking about it on social media. A bottle of Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds. And the biggest benefit? Well, my wife says it makes her feel like her own self again. And that's what women mention over and over in the reviews. And there are over 30,000 reviews for Hormone Harmony. And for a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use code RLRC at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC for 15% off today. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC.
And Kwong Yao had been planning for a life as a Catholic priest. Chow kept her head low and made her way around the bar, hoping to find Ronnie Williams, the policeman who was supposed to protect them. And she found the officer behind the bar, face down on the floor. She said, "I saw Ronnie was lying face down with all the blood around him. The bar telephone was missing, but under the bar, Chow spotted her purse, and in it was her new cell phone. She grabbed her purse and ran back into the cooler, and then she tried to call 911 but couldn't get through. She was terrified that Frank and Lacasse would return and kill them. She called again, but still couldn't reach an emergency operator, and finally in desperation, she called a friend and begged them to call for help. She said the police officer was killed. Kwok wanted to make sure the police were on the way. He slipped out of the restaurant and ran to a nearby friend's house to use the telephone. So, meanwhile, this is going on, y'all, and Frank left. But what does she do? She dropped Lacaz off at an apartment, and she hauls ass to the New Orleans Police Department 7th District Station, and she ran into the door. She told the desk officer, she said, I need a bar police car to respond to a shooting at the Kim Ann restaurant. And she grabbed the keys to one of the marked police cars and left. In the cooler, Chow and Miss Vu prayed. When Chow peered outside, she saw a marked police car cruise through the parking lot, then disappear. There was only one police car, and then I still don't feel safe because I know that Antoinette is a cop. Chow's instincts were correct. Frank, with a .38 revolver tucked inside her waistband, was the first police officer to arrive. She parked her borrowed police cruiser next to the State Farm insurance offices and headed back into the restaurant. Within a few minutes, a second car pulled in the parking lot. It was unmarked, but to Chow, it looked like a police car. Two men got out, and they wore police uniforms. Chow threw open the cooler, bolted through the front door, and ran to the unmarked police car. The two uniformed officers were Wayne Favre and Reginald Jacques, both veteran detectives. They had been marking an extra duty detail nearby when the call came over the radio of a shooting at the Kim Ann. Moments later, the dispatcher upgraded a call saying a police officer had been shot. Police cars started racing to the scene. Favre saw a young Vietnamese woman running toward him from the restaurant being chased by a black woman. Favre recognized the second woman as a police officer. Behind Favre and Jacques, another unmarked police car skidded to a stop in the parking lot. A female officer jumped out from behind the wheel, and she was Detective Yvonne Favre, Wayne Favre's wife, and an 18-year-old police veteran. But she didn't know Antoinette Frank. Chow spotted Yvonne Favre and dashed into her arms. Wayne Favre stopped Frank and asked her where the perpetrators were. She said, in the back. Reginald Jacques crept around to the back while Wayne Favre went through the front door. Inside, they found only the murdered victims. So Chow was hysterical, but she wanted to check on her brother and sister. Frank says, hey, I'm a 26, which is a police code, y'all, for an officer. Frank then looked at Chow Boo as if seeing her for the first time tonight. She said, Chow, this is what I told y'all already. She said, Chow, what happened to your brother and sister? Through her tears, Chow said, you were there. You know everything. Why you asked me that question? So they entered the dining room, and Yvonne Favre saw her husband kneeling over the body of Ronnie Williams, checking for vitals. He just looked at me and shook his head, Yvonne said. In the cramped kitchen, Yvonne Favre saw the bodies of Hao and Quang Vu. Quang lay on his side, knees pulled up to his chest, and he had been shot 6 times. The bullet striking him in the head, chest, abdomen, right arm, and right leg. His older sister, Hao, was still on her knees, and her forehead was resting against the floor. She had been shot 4 times in the head, the right arm, and the right leg. With Frank standing out of sight behind her, Yvonne Favre asked Chow who did it. Chow said Antoinette and a short black man with gold teeth had come in the restaurant. They were shooting everybody, she said. Not recognizing the name, Yvonne asked Antoinette who Antoinette was, and Chow pointed Yvonne Favre to the officer, Antoinette Frank. Homicide investigator Sergeant Eddie Rance and Detective Marco Dema arrived at the Kim Ann restaurant about 30 minutes after the shootings. Frank told the 2 detectives she'd been in the kitchen getting something to drink when she heard the gunshots in the dining room. Unarmed and without a radio to call for help, she claimed to have hustled some of the restaurant workers out through the back door, then jumped in her car and raced to the police station to report the shots. Frank said that at the station, she told the desk officer what had happened and grabbed a police car and returned to the restaurant to help moments before the other officers arrived. Now, while working a homicide, one of the first things Sergeant Rance does is get to know the crime scene. And as he walked through the bloody scene at the Kim Ann, he noticed that the screen door at the back of the restaurant was locked. It made him wonder about Frank's story. So we went back to her, and that's when she started talking about Roger Lacasse, Rance said. I asked her if she had a gun on her. She told me no. The detectives heard a different story from Chow and Quoc Vu, and after hearing it, Rance walked up to the chief of police who had just arrived on the scene. He said, I told the chief, we're about to book this motherfucker, talk about Frank, y'all, for first-degree murder. She told me she didn't have a gun, but I started patting her down and I found one from her waistband, Rance. Rance pulled a .38 revolver. Her behavior and attitude stunned even seasoned homicide detectives. She is, without a doubt, the most cold-hearted person I've ever met, Rance said. Rance sent a team of detectives to find Roger Lacasse, and he and Dimma took Frank into custody, handcuffed her, and drove her to the homicide office. On the third floor of the police headquarters, where the homicide detectives or office, Rance and Dimma interviewed Frank for several hours. And in a tape statement, Frank maintained that Lacasse had killed Officer Williams, but confessed that she had killed Ha and Quang Bu in the kitchen. She said she had executed the brother and sister because Lacasse had made her do it. And according to her statement, Rogers handed her the gun that he had shot Williams with and pressed the dead officer's pistol against her head. If she hadn't shot the two young Vietnamese, Lacasse would have killed her. Detectives asked why she hadn't turned the gun on Lacasse and shot him instead of killing Ha and Quang, or why later she hadn't used her police radio, which they had found under the front seat of the car, to call for help. All she said was, I was too scared. I was frantic. Explaining why he thinks Frank grabbed a police car and rushed back to the scene, Sergeant Rance later said, there's no doubt in my mind she went back to kill the rest of them. Isn't that crazy, y'all? So they got her under arrest, and they began to dig in the relationship, and they found out about her and Lacasse's relationship, and that he was a dope dealer. Like I told you before, he had even rode with her on duty and been seen driving her car. They had been stopping and robbing people using the police lights. He's just a piece of shit. So the week before the murders, y'all, Frank had gone to the evidence room and taken out a 9mm pistol, but then she reports it stolen. It was bred a 9mm pistol, but then she reported it stolen. And Lacasse was actually at her house when the police officer arrived to take the report. Later on, she admitted that the gun hadn't really been stolen. And on the day of the robbery, a couple of hours before her shift, which was from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., Frank and Lacasse went to a Walmart together to buy 9mm bullets. And y'all, 2 months before the robbery, New Orleans police detectives searched Officer Frank's house looking for her brother, Adam Frank Jr., who was a wanted fugitive from Opelousas, Louisiana, who had been staying with her. Adam Frank was wanted on 2 counts of attempted manslaughter and a probation violation. Adam Frank Sr., Antoinette's father, I told y'all, had been living in her house, but he went missing. Now, you go back to it, again, I told y'all about how she applied for the state police and got denied because of the felon psychological part. Well, it turns out that she also really failed the New Orleans Police Department's hiring process, but they hired her anyway. But I mean, it was pretty bad. During the investigation, the pre-employment investigation, they found out that in early 1992, Frank began the quest to become a New Orleans police officer, and almost from the start, there were problems. On both her application and during an interview with the police investigator assigned to conduct her background investigation, she lied and told a story about being transferred from a Walmart in Opelousas to the one in New Orleans. But the Opelousas store personnel department told the investigator that Frank had been fired for personality conflicts and other associates and was not eligible for rehire. Despite the lie, The police investigator rated Frank as an acceptable police applicant. In March 1992, as part of the application process, Frank took the standardized personality test assessment, 2 of them, y'all, and the psychologist who reviewed her test scores ranked her as poor, the lowest score possible in the areas of tolerance, open-mindedness, and impulse control, and ranked her as below average in stability, maturity, and the probability of adjusting to organizations. Among other concerns, the psychologist cited Frank's extreme lack of tolerance and flexibility and suggested a psych evaluation. At the conclusion of the psych evaluation, the psychiatrist who interviewed Frank rated her as unacceptable in integrity, forthrightness, and is willing to accept responsibility. The doctor basically said, no way should you hire. And a few days after that, in January 1993, Frank disappeared after meeting with her attorney in a downtown office building. She disappeared and she left a suicide note, y'all. And it said, I was doomed since the day I was born. I hate myself and I hate my life. But she turns up 2 weeks later, and the New Orleans Police Department hired her in July of 1993. It's crazy. And I told y'all that she graduated from the academy, top of her class and everything else. Now, I'm kind of summing the rest of it up for you. When she had dropped Lacaze off, remember he took Officer Williams' wallet. She dropped him off at an apartment, and y'all, 15 minutes after shooting, they've got him at a gas station using Officer Williams' card to get $15 in gas. And they called him, he admitted that he had been at the restaurant earlier with Frank, but said he was across town shooting pool with his brother when the robbery took place. But according to the statement his brother gave to the police, Lacaze told him Antoinette really fucked up. Rogers admitted to his brother that they had planned the robbery for about a week and that he had shot the policeman, but said Frank had shot the other 2. The jury heard, when they go to trial, y'all, they said they tried them separately. Lacaze went first, and the jury in Lacaze's trial got to hear the tape statement he gave the detectives the morning after shooting, and he explained that Frank was mad at Officer Williams. He said, Ronnie always be fucking her over, he said. He'd been messing her over, and the Vu family didn't say anything or do anything about it. According to Lacaze, she was going to get them motherfuckers. And in the trial, Lacaze, he acted like his own attorney and shit. And he denied being at the restaurant during the shootings. But the one thing he could deny was that he'd used Officer Williams' credit card to buy $15.29 worth of gas. And I said 15 minutes, 45 minutes after the murders. His attorney, who was assisting him, said if Rogers had not used the credit card, he would have gotten off. In July 1995, just 4 months after the gruesome murders, the jury found Lacaze guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced him to death by lethal injection. And he went to prison, and basically, it's like everybody else, he denies any involvement, and he proclaims his innocence. And he said he's as much as a victim as Ronald Williams and Hao and Quang Bu. So anyway, when he was in prison, he received a note from Frank, and it was short and said, "Stick to your innocence. I'm proud of you. God keep you." So later, 6 weeks later, Frank's trial began after Lacaze's trial. And during her trial, the jury actually went to the restaurant and toured the murder scene. And in the kitchen, Detective Marco Dema showed jury members where they had found the bodies of Hao and Quang Bu. He said, you could see it. It's a small confined area, and the bodies were close together on the floor. And even though Frank's defense team had subpoenaed 39 potential witnesses, they didn't call any of them. And in October 1995, the jury sentenced Frank to death for the murders of Officer Ronald Williams, Ha, and Quang Bu. And then they sentenced her to death by lethal injection. Now check this out. Remember I told you she had reported her father had gone missing, and a month after the jury sentenced her to die by lethal injection, a dog uncovered human bones under the house where she lived with her father, who she had reported missing 2 years before. And experts who examined the remains, an arm, a leg, sections of spine, and a skull, they found that the skull had a bullet hole in it, y'all. And they were unable to make a positive identification, but they had determined that those are of the remains are of a man about the same age as Frank's father. And from death row, Frank denies any knowledge of the skeletal remains and refuses to provide DNA samples for comparison. Y'all, they pretty much just kind of wrote it off. I mean, she's going to die by lethal injection anyway. If she's convicted of 3 murders, they don't have to prosecute her for the murder of her dad. So after 7 years on death row, she continues to file appeals, and she's claiming she's a victim of post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, that her father calls for her and all that, and in appeals, her lawyers want a new penalty phase and a chance in front of a jury that could change her death sentence to a life sentence. I'm going to tell you what did happen. Lacaze did an appeal, and he got his changed to a life sentence, but Frank didn't, okay? And I'm going to take you to what I know about it now. Now, she goes in, she had like a death date of 2008, and it got delayed and everything. And to this day, she is still alive at the women's prison in St. Gabriel. And I could tell you from lifers who were in as prisoners, and they're great people. They made a mistake earlier in their lives, but they paid for it. But they said when she got there, being Antoinette Frank, that they shut everything down. Every time they moved her, they shut down all the water. They shut the whole fucking prison down. They locked them down, and anytime she was moved, she's handcuffed and shackled to a waist chain, and she had 2 correctional officers on either side of her. Now, even though she's housed as technically as death row in the women's prison, that she still gets her hour out a day, and anytime she gets out, they shut down the whole prison. This was told to me by not only prisoners that are former prisoners of there, but also a correctional officer who worked there, and she said, Woody, that lady was super fit, and we knew she was trained in, you know, all hand-to-hand combat and all the police tactics and everything. And, you know, basically, she's sentenced to death. She's got nothing to lose by trying to escape and trying to kill another correctional officer. She said anytime they moved her, everything was shut down as on the strictest security. Hey, y'all, let me tell you about Gobble.
All Gobble meal kits are pre-prepped. That means less work for you and less waste in your kitchen. Their meal kits include everything you need so you can save time at the store or just skip that trip entirely. I got the box in and I had 3 different meals. I had a Kung Pao chicken, crispy fish tacos, and a beef bourguignon, however you say it. But let me tell you about the classic beef bourguignon. Look, it came with beef pot roast and a beef broth concentrate, red wine demi-glaze, cremini mushrooms, cipollone onions, mashed potatoes, baby carrots, and rosemary thyme butter. It was so easy to make. Literally like 15 minutes it took Cindy. And let me tell you something, and all the dishes were fire, but this thing was like a taste explosion in my mouth. It's just unreal. We've got to spend more time together and more time doing the things we love because everything came in this one single box right to my door. So see what a difference Gobble will make for your household. Right now, they're offering my listeners a fantastic limited time deal. You get $120 off across 4 boxes, plus free shipping and free cookies. And let me tell you, those cookies, I ate one that was sin baked and it was delicious. Go to gobble.com/real life. That's GOBBLE.com/real life for $120 off your first 4 boxes. This offer is not available on the home site, so don't miss out. This is genius. It's taste explosions in your mouth like you never had.
Shop early, save big, all month long during Black Friday build-up at Lowe's. Right now, get select pre-lit artificial Christmas trees starting at just $59.98. Don't wait to save. Shop these deals today, in-store or online, because Lowe's knows deals. Discount taken at time of purchase while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Another friend of mine who's a huge lifer who goes there for medical reasons to look at inmates said the same thing, said that she actually examines Antoinette Frank and that she just is a smooth talker and everything. You would never know that she had executed those 3 people. And the correctional officer actually told me, she said she was a smooth talker, said butter would melt in her mouth, right? Another lifer who was doing some type of internship for the Department of Corrections said one day that she had to go to the women's prison, and it just so happened while she was there that they were moving Antoinette Frank from one spot to another, maybe her exercise or whatever, and she said they locked me down. They loved it. So they consider her, and rightfully so, to be one badass motherfucker. And she's done her appeals where Lacaz is now sentenced to Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola for life. His sentence got changed. Hers did not. She is still up for the death penalty, and one day they're going to execute her. The problem is, in the state of Louisiana now, the governor and the attorney general are fighting over the narcotics used in the execution, and it's just a big shit show. I suppose once this governor gets out of office next year, that they're going to move forward. They'll find the drugs needed to continue the executions, and all these assholes that are backed up, they've been waiting all these years with death sentences. They're going to start putting the needle in them, as they should be. Antoinette Frank, absolutely just a monster, an absolute monster. The 3 that she killed that they know of, the robberies. So there was even another time that she and Lacaz had pulled somebody over that Lacaz had just got in a fight with at a party or something, and one of the dudes ran off, and the other one had like a Tech-9, the shittiest pistol in the world, and they were fighting him on the side of the street, and somebody else pulled up and saw it, and she said, hey, I'm a police officer, this is the bad guy, and they helped. I think he even shot the gun like once or twice, and they helped subdue him, and they arrested him, and she charged him with attempted murder and whatever else, battery and shit like that. So she was just a bad seed, had always been a bad seed, and NOPD hired her even after they knew she lied numerous times and failed every fucking psychological test in the world. And guess what? Those tests ended up being right. One day, she's going to have to pay the ultimate price. Yeah. One day, they're going to take her to Angola and strap her down. She'll spend the last night in the death house, and they're going to strap her down, and she's going to ride the needle, and she'll rightfully so. It goes to show you good and bad in every profession, right? You got Corporal Sean Kelly, who was murdered by a piece of shit like Frank, just responding to a call, right? He's ambushed, and he's deceased, and gave his life to protect and serve it. And yeah, I believe Sheriff R was right. He died doing what he loved. And Antoinette Frank killed Officer Ronald Williams, who at one time had been her rabbi, you know. So you have the good and bad in every profession. And I'm going to conclude this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. Thank y'all for listening. I love and appreciate each and every one of y'all. Go check out Bloody Angola. It's a podcast I do with Jim Chapman. It's rising to the top of the charts. The numbers are phenomenal. I want to thank y'all for it. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out. It's all kinds of different stories, and from uplifting to the worst of the worst in the prison. Real Life, Real Crime Daily. Check it out, people. It's like, I call it the Howard Stern of crime. I mean, it's fun. We have a lot of fun doing the show, but we report serious news, relevant news that's happening currently, and we do a lot of other things also, different segments like Mile High Crimes and Kinky Crimes and They Stole What and Dumb Criminals and stuff like that. It's a great show. Y'all go check it out. And don't forget to download the Real Life, Real Crime Community app. It's free in the App Store. I'm going there and answering everybody's questions first because I have all this other social media and people sending messages to all these different places. And hell, sometimes I don't get to read them for a week, right? So if you want me to respond to you directly, the Real Life, Real Crime Community app has forums and chat groups and games and news updates and store case updates and everything else. And it's censored only by me, so you won't get put in Facebook jail. And so y'all go download that and check it out. It has Real Life, Real Crime Daily on it. It has my show, regular Real Life, Real Crime. We always see the advertisements for the next Bloody Angola episode. And I mean, I think there's over 18 or 19,000 people in it right now. So download the app. It's for free. Check it out. Patreon and Convicts and our Apple subscribers, appreciate you so much. You're going to be getting double the amount of episodes that you have now within 2 months. And it's going to come some every week. Within 2 months, I'm going to double the size of the bonus episodes I have locked up in the vault for y'all. And you will be getting your commercial-free early releases. Today, you're going to get this late. No doubt about it. It's just a wild last week and tough weekend, but it doesn't matter. From now on, you're going to get them way early, like we used to do, at least 5 to 7 days early, commercial-free, unedited, raw and unscripted. You get to hear all the boom gems and the fuck-ups and everything else. And if we owe y'all something, let us know. And email Cindy at realliferealcrime.com. You want to submit a case to me, get all the facts together that you can on it, and email me, Woody at realliferealcrime.com. I'm getting like 30 a day, y'all, and it's hard as hell for me to try to keep them all in one place. And I'm going to work a lot of them. I'm going to at least tell the stories. So those will be coming in. Oh, let's see what else. I just love and appreciate all of y'all. Thank you so much for consistently making us in the top 50 and made us high as number 1. It's awesome. I love and appreciate each and every one of y'all. The Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency, or LOPA. Oh, back one more second. Miss Barbara Blount, y'all. Her case is still active. I need your help. The Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office needs your help, and somebody knows something. And yes, we know a lot that we can't tell. And remember, murder, there's a statute of limitations on murder, but we need your help, okay? We need that one piece that takes it beyond a reasonable, that makes it to beyond a reasonable doubt and not just probable cause. So I'm going to give you the tip line number. It is 313-757-2847 or 313-RLRC-TIP, TIP. So y'all continue to call those in. I'm going to be getting with Sheriff Hard soon, and we're going to do an episode when we can get it lined up. We need your help. Can't do it without you people. We've done it in other cases. We did it for Coco. We did it for Mary Poche. The let's do it. We got to tell Kim Womack's case that let's do it for Barbara Blount. Okay, let's bring her home. And LOPA, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency, you know, it's my jam. They're a nonprofit. They save lives every day. Unfortunately, Corporal Sean Kelly, he was an organ donor, but unfortunately, due to complications he had during his time in the hospital, he wasn't able to be. They weren't able to use his gift of life, right? And so the chances that your organs will ever be used are slim to none. But if they are, then you're a hero in death. You save lives. And you don't have to be from Louisiana to be an organ donor. Go to lopa.org, fill out the 2-minute questionnaire thing, and submit it. If you're a lifer from Afghanistan and you want to, sign up with LOPA, go to lopa.org, fill it out, and you don't have to be from Louisiana. They'll get you in the system, and you can be a hero, right? And I'm Woody Overton, your host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And until next time or ever, don't let me catch you down on Murder Bayou. Peace. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?